Hello YouTube, Dave here again. A while back I started a series of videos just kind of showing off all the different things that I collect, in addition to just, my D&D books. And I feel kind of bad because I actually got away from it. Now, it was never meant to be like a regular steady thing. It was more or less going to be sort of like a stopgap. If I had a day where I didn't really know what to make a video on, I could throw one of those up there. So today I looked at my CDs, my DVDs, and my graphic novels and my novels that I have in my collection. And there's not really much left to do. Just my video games, board games, and my D&D stuff. So, over the next couple of weeks, next 2 or 3 weeks I think it's going to be, I'm going to show off all of my the video games that I have, including like special editions. I'll probably have some of them grouped together by franchise. For example, like Legend of Zelda, Halo, stuff like that. But today, in this video, what I want to do is actually go and show off all of the digital games that I have downloaded, because I feel like, honestly, digital downloads still count as something that you have in your collection. I mean, I can play these games at any time. So, and I've paid for them. These are all ones that are actually like legally acquired and paid for. So I'm going to show the games that I have downloaded on my PC through goodoldgames.com. I did that earlier, but I'm just going to refresh that because I have added something else to my collection after that video. I also am going to show the games that I have downloaded on my Nintendo 3DS, my Nintendo Wii, the Wii U, and my Xbox 360. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at some of the digital games that I have in my collection. Alright, so starting with my laptop. So this is my brand new laptop, which, so I had to go back and re-download all the games that I had downloaded on my old one before it got ruined. Like I said, I've shown this off before, but I thought I would just go through it again because I have added another game since. So let's just go ahead and start off with the first one I want to show here. So we've got Knights of the Old Republic, and I did pick up, so this is the newest game that I added, was Knights of the Old Republic 2. They had it on sale for, I think it was like $5. Normally it was 12 something. And those are Canadian prices, by the way, so whenever I give a price for these things, they are in Canadian dollars because I am Canadian. So I added Knights of the Old Republic 2, and I was okay paying the $5 for it. I wasn't going to pay 12. And I started playing it again, and it still feels more power gaming sort of thing. Like, my character is much more effective in combat, even though he's sort of supposed to be the mid-range character, than the same character is at higher level in the original Knights of the Old Republic. But the thing that I love about Knights of the Old Republic, and I don't know if I actually mentioned this before on camera or not, but when it came to home console Dungeons & Dragons games, especially, in the Xbox era and beyond, they very poorly emulate the actual Dungeons & Dragons rule set, the actual mechanics of the game. So I've had people ask me before, what do I consider to be my favorite Dungeons & Dragons game on home consoles? And my answer is always Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and people seem a bit taken back by that. But you have to remember that back in the early 2000s, the Star Wars role-playing game, tabletop pencil and paper role-playing game, was put out by Wizards of the Coast and used the D20 system that Dungeons & Dragons used. And Knights of the Old Republic really perfectly captured the D20 system. It has the skill system, it has the feat system, base attack, and it had the level 20 cap in the first game, which is something that the Star Wars role-playing game had. But it just really represented the system really well. So for me, it was great. The only issue with the original Knights of the Old Republic is there was a programming error in which your intelligence modifier didn't add to skill points like it was supposed to, which really kind of sucks because there are things that you want to have good skills for. One of the biggest things, and this may be a bit of a spoiler, but you get a droid party member that has memory issues, and you can actually use the repair skill to retrieve these memories and gain modifiers for it, gain bonuses to their stats or certain attacks that they can do. And it's something that is difficult to do because your skills aren't that great. If you choose the class that gets the most skills, you're still only gaining, I think, 5 skills per level, instead of you know, being able to have like a +3 modifier for your intelligence to be gaining 8 skill points per level. So that's the only real downside for that. Knights of the Old Republic 2 does fix that programming error, so your intelligence modifier now adds to it. But like I said, it just feels a bit more power gaming. Your character feels a lot stronger and a lot more powerful. I mean, even my, like, I think he's only about 3rd or 4th level in this game, already feels more powerful than the 8th level character, 8th or 9th level character that I have in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. You also go beyond 20th. I think you get up to like 22nd or 23rd. On the Xbox, there was a major issue with the ending, and I'm hoping that it's not the same on the PC, but I think it is, in that your moral choice system, your light side or dark side, doesn't mean anything to the actual ending of the game. At the very end, you select from one of 3 choices, and on the Xbox, it played the same ending cinematic regardless of what choice I made. So I'm hoping that that's a little bit different here. I also have the Baldur's Gate Enhanced Editions for 1 and 2. And I haven't finished 2 yet. I'm actually only a couple hours into that one. But I was able to play and finally beat Baldur's Gate, Baldur's Gate, not Dark Alliance, just Baldur's Gate, for the PC for the first time after getting this port, so I really love it. I also have the Temple of Elemental Evil, which was based on the 3rd edition rule set. And this is pretty cool, though I haven't really gotten very far into it. I think I only have about an hour of gameplay. Icewind Dale 2 Complete. This version kind of bothers me because on my old PC it ran perfectly fine, and on this one it won't load up at all. And I've looked up some fixes and I don't see anything that's been able to help me. So if anyone out there has Windows 10 and has downloaded Icewind Dale 2 from the goodoldgames.com and had to do a workaround to get it to work, let me know. I might try just deleting it and reinstalling it and seeing if that helps, but I would really like to get back in this one because I had probably about 9 hours into it. I was doing pretty well, but my old laptop, like I said, it's fried. So if anyone knows how to get this working for Windows 10, please let me know. And then, of course, there's the Eye of the Beholder series, so I've got 1, 2, and 3. It is important to know that these games and a lot of the other gold box games that I have are available on Good Old Games, but they're part of bundle sets. So you don't look them up by Eye of the Beholder. They're based on, I think they're the Forgotten Realms collection, and there are 3 of them, and I have all 3 of them downloaded. So these ones are like first-person dungeon crawls, which is pretty cool. It has like a hunger system that you have to make sure all your player characters are fed, and I haven't really gotten very far into it. What I need to do is draw a map as I go through, because it's really easy to get turned around, especially in the first game where there's this teleportation puzzle that's a really big pain to go through. I played a little bit of Eye of the Beholder 2, but not very much, and I haven't played any of Eye of the Beholder 3, so I don't know anything about that game at all. There's also Menzo Berenzin. So you go into the Underdark. I think you can actually get Dritz Duerden in your party at some point, which is kind of cool. You create 2 characters. It's first person again, like Eye of the Beholder, but it's a lot smoother. So you actually turn around instead of just like instantly going from facing north to, say, east. You actually like turn. You see the camera pan. So it's a bit more advanced as far as that goes, but it is really cool what I played of it so far. I didn't get very far into it, and I don't think I've played it since I put it on this new computer, so the progress that I made, unfortunately, is gone. But what's also cool is that you can make notes on your map. So you can bring up this map. It's a separate screen, but you can actually type in notes, so you can label what the places are, which is really, really useful. So if you play the game, definitely make use of that feature. We have Dungeon Hack, which I actually was able to complete a playthrough of. This is a series of randomly generated dungeons that you go through. You can adjust the level of floors, so I did the minimum just to try to get through it. There's custom settings, which is really cool because you can make it so that you don't fight undead, and I didn't want to fight undead because they suck. You get a lot of level drain, and if you're playing a spellcaster and you get level drained, it really screws you up. but I really enjoyed playing through this. I used my custom settings, but I was able to go through and actually defeat the game, and I want to go back and try, adding a few extra levels, and eventually probably getting to the point where I fight undead. Hillsfar, I don't know much about this one. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but you can import characters from the Pool of Radiance series into it. So I want to kind of go through and see if I can actually beat the Pool of Radiance games before I go too far. So there are 4 of these games in total. So Pool of Radiance was the very first one, and these are very crude. I don't know if it shows screenshots or not. No, it doesn't show screenshots on your purchase screen. But it's very, very early RPG, but it's still a lot of fun. Again, you probably want to have a map with it. I want to see if I can also print out the clue books at some point, because they are kind of important, and when you load up the game it goes full screen. So, and I don't, there's probably an easy way to do it, but I'm not very tech savvy, so I don't know how to switch from the DOSBox screen to just my tabletops or my desktop. So anyway, but it's a really cool game. So there was the Pool of Radiance was the first one, and then you have Curse of the Azure Bonds was the second one in the series. And you can import your characters from one into the other, which is really cool. You have more class options, I think, available in Curse of the Azure Bond, so I think you can make like Paladins and Rangers, whereas Pool of Radiance just had, I think it was just Fighter, Cleric, Magic User, and Thief. And then Secret of the Silver Blades, I believe, was the third game in the series. I never touched this one at all, so I know absolutely nothing about it. And then there's Pools of Darkness, which is the final one. Now I understand Pools of Darkness was probably the less well received, or the least well received of the group, but there you have it. I haven't touched it yet, so like I said, I don't know, but I suspect it involves Drow, because there's, Drow on the cover. Then you have the Savage Frontier games, so there were 2 of those, and I'm not quite sure of the order. I want to say Gateway to this. Gateway of the Savage Frontier, or Gateway to the Savage Frontier. It says of in the artwork, and it says 2 here. So I believe that's the first one. I could be entirely wrong. The other game was Treasures of the Savage Frontier. And again, I believe it just plays similar to the other Gold Box games. I think it uses a similar interface or mechanics. Again, I haven't actually loaded these up at all, so they're one of those things that I'd love to get to at some point, but these games take a lot of time, and I just don't really have a lot of that time to play them right now. We also have Unlimited Adventures. So this is really cool. This was, I think, the last one to be released by SSI for the Forgotten Realms. And it's basically something where you can go through and create your own dungeons, which is pretty awesome. So you can go through and create your own dungeons, and you generate like a seed key based off of what elements you put in there, and you can have your friends go through it, which I thought was really cool. So I believe it's a first-person dungeon crawler, but I could be wrong. It could be the old Gold Box, like the Pool of Radiance. Like I said, I kind of wish there were screenshots, but there are not. So anyway, but those are my downloads from Good Old Games, and yes, they are all RPGs, because for me, that's what I want to play the most, especially from computer games. So this is what I have in my collection. So some people did suggest that I get Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 and give it another try. So I do have it. I am giving it another try, and I will reserve my final judgment until I get to the ending. And if the ending is as ho-hum as it was on the Xbox version, then at least I got it for cheap. So anyway, those are my PC games. So what I'm going to do now is get this out of the way, and I'm going to look at my 3DS games that I have downloaded. Alright, so here I have my 3DS. I also brought my Wii U gamepad over because I realized that it displays, like, the actual things that you have downloaded display on the gamepad more than they do on the television screen. So we'll look at both of those here in a moment. I'm actually going to look at, why don't I look at the Wii U first, because it actually has the lower amount of games on there. I haven't really downloaded a whole lot. So the Wii U, in my opinion, is a totally underrated system. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite systems that I think I've ever owned. And it's a shame that it just, wasn't popular. It's a shame that they decided to call it the Wii U instead of something like, the Wii 2, which would make you realize that, yeah, it's a different console, because that was the major source of confusion to begin with. So I got my Legend of Zelda gamepad protector here. You can see that, unfortunately, it does kind of wear off. I try to be as careful as possible. But when you have children that use these things, it rubs a lot of the paint off, which really sucks. But I do have another one of these that's in the box, sealed, and is just going to be a collector's item. So if this wears off, it wears off. I have a Mario Maker one as well, which got really worn off as well, which was yellow, so I can always switch that back on if I want. Anyway, let's look at the actual game. So this is not a downloaded title. I have the physical copy of the NES Remix games, which is really great. So let's just see if I can zoom in here. Probably something that I should have done with the PC, but I wasn't quite thinking about it. So what I have here, for my downloaded games, the first two games that I downloaded were Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, and Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. I have the physical copy of Donkey Kong Country, which you saw in the video where I kind of unboxed it and just showed, what I had. So that was really cool. Donkey Kong Country 3, still not a huge fan of, but they had them on the Virtual Console, so I decided, I definitely wanted Donkey Kong Country 2, and so I got Donkey Kong Country 3 with that as well. The version of the Wii U that I got came with Super Mario Maker. Now, unfortunately, it was not a physical copy of the game. It's a little bit tilted. There we go. It wasn't a physical copy of the game, unfortunately. It was a download code only, but it did come with the book that you would get with the physical copy, so I'm okay with that. I don't need the physical copy, just because all I really wanted it for was the book. But I have Super Mario Maker here, and this is just amazing. We spent countless hours making levels and designing levels and playing through this, so this is absolutely one of the greatest things I think Nintendo's ever done. So I only have a few other games here, but what I have is The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap. This was released for the Game Boy Advance, which I don't have. So I picked this up. I never got a chance to play it otherwise. I'm only a few hours into it. Again, this is one of those things that I picked up and it's like, oh, this will be something that I really enjoy. And it does look like a great game. I just haven't had a chance to really fully play through it. I also picked up Super Mario Advance 3. This is Yoshi's Island. So this is a port of the Super Nintendo Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. And I got this because the original version was not available for download. And my fiance, she really loves Yoshi's Island. So I got this one because we didn't have access to the other one. I do have access to the original version now, which I'll show in a moment. But like I said, I still got this for her, and I believe this also has the Mario Brothers Arcade on it. I think all of the Mario Advance games had the Mario Brothers Arcade included. So at the very least, I could play, the Mario Brothers Arcade. Also, we downloaded Double Dragon for the Nintendo Entertainment System. So this was something that she wanted to get as a two-player sort of beat-em-up thing. And I can't remember if this one actually allows two players or not. We only played it for a few minutes. It is a lot of fun. Like, Double Dragon's a great game, but we just never really got too far into it. But she downloaded it because she thought it'd be fun and just, played it for a few minutes, and I don't think it's been touched since, which is a shame. So one of these days I'm going to go through and pick this up. We also downloaded Octodad, Dadliest Catch. We watched a Let's Play of Octodad by the YouTuber Psycho on his Psycho Plays channel, and we thought it was so hilarious that we went out and downloaded it. So you play this octopus that's posing as a human, and it's really ridiculous, but it's a physics-based game. You use like the shoulder buttons and or I think it's the triggers to move each individual foot, and you use the thumbsticks to move each individual arm. And so to walk, you have to like push one trigger in and then push the other, let go, and it's a lot of fun. It's really silly and ridiculous, and it's not a game that you're supposed to take seriously, but it is a lot of fun. And the last game that I have on my Wii U is the Metroid Prime Trilogy. So this is a Wii title. So on the Virtual Console for the Wii U, you can actually download a handful of Wii titles. And this is one that I had to get. And I know that the virtual, like the eShop, I think is going to be closing at some point in the very near future. So at the time that I'm recording this part of the video, I did the intro yesterday. But at the time that I'm recording this part of the video, I downloaded this just in less than 12 hours ago, I think, at this point. So it's really awesome. It has the three Metroid Prime games. So Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, I think it is, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. And they all use the Wii controls. So you have to have a Wiimote and a nunchuck in order to play the game. But it is really, really cool. I got through the prologue this morning. And I'm really looking forward to playing the entire series because I think it's just really great. So those are my Wii U games. I'm actually going to go ahead and shut this off now. And we're going to look at my Nintendo 3DS. So I'm actually just going to show them up out here on the screen. Majora's Mask is not a downloaded title. It's just what's in the console at the time. But let's go have a look here. Alright, so the first title that I have downloaded here isn't the first one that I actually did download, it just seems to be presented first here. But it's Super Mario Brothers for the original NES. I downloaded this because I went to get another game and had funds left over, which covered the download of this as well. So that's why I have it. Super Mario Brothers is a classic. And what's really cool, it's actually the microphone's picking up my words, and it spins the controller around, the console around. But it's really cool. I just love the presentation with like the actual NES. You can see like the ports on the back and everything. It's really cool. The game that I went to download with that though, and wow, I've never really seen it do that before. So the game that I actually went to download first was the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. For the Game Boy Color. So I have a French version of the original Game Boy game, which it was basically an eBay buy that looked too good to be true and ended up being the wrong language. I was able to play through it anyway, which is really cool. But here we have, so this is the first Zelda game for the portable systems, and it is amazing. It's something that you really need to check out if you haven't already. I also went and downloaded a game that I had originally for my Game Boy. I got it when I got my Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo, which I no longer have because I sold the system and all the stuff that went with it. But I have Donkey Kong. So this includes a remake of the original Donkey Kong arcade game. Actually, it has all 4 of the levels, where the NES version was missing one of them. And then it has like 99 levels total. You go through different environments. Mario can do like handstands, and he can do flip jumps, and it's really, really awesome. So if you haven't played this yet, and you have a 3DS, go and download it because it is absolutely amazing. I also downloaded Metroid 2, Return of Samus for the original Game Boy. And this is just another one of those games that I really wanted to have because, you know, I started playing Super Metroid, and I just wanted to sort of get, you know, some of the other games. I hate Metroid on the NES. I hate the way it controls. I learned that through playing the NES Remix game, so I'll never probably get that one. But Return of Samus is pretty cool. I haven't gotten too far into it. It's much more linear, but it's another one of those titles that I have. Also, I have for the Game Boy Color the Legend of Zelda Oracle game. So there's Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. They are 2 different types of games, very similar premise for each. Basically, you could also use the 2 of them together with codes to unlock the true final boss of the game. So they're different gameplay styles. So if you like the puzzles from the Legend of Zelda series, then Oracle of Ages is the one to go for. If you like just more of an action game, then Oracle of Seasons is the more action-oriented game. This was a free demo, Sub Wars that they gave me, or a free game that they gave me. I played it, I think, once. But I have here Castlevania The Adventure. I like the Castlevania games. I'm not very good at them, but I like them. This game's pretty rough. I'm gonna, be completely and totally honest with you. But it is a Castlevania game on the Game Boy, so one of these days I might actually seriously sit down and try to play it. Alright, so I have the Donkey Kong Land games on here as well. So in a previous video I opened up my physical copy of the original here with Donkey Kong Land. But I also downloaded Donkey Kong Land 2 and Donkey Kong Land 3. So these are basically they're counterparts to the Donkey Kong Country games. So Donkey Kong Land 3 plays very similar, has some similar environments to Donkey Kong Country 2. And I believe it's the same for Donkey Kong Land 3. I haven't really played much of that one. But the first one is actually really kind of different. So it has different level types, different enemy types. It's really cool, but the controls are a bit difficult, so just keep that in mind. I also downloaded Ninja Gaiden for the NES. Very difficult game, but being able to create save states makes it a little bit easier. And yes, I will use save states because they are available, so why not? I also downloaded Balloon Fight for the NES, just classic black box game that I love. Mega Man 2, which I haven't gotten too far into yet, but it's one of the best Mega Man games that a lot of people say, so had to get that downloaded. Pokemon Rumble World was again one of those free things that it just kind of put on your system, so I don't think I actually ever played it. I just downloaded it because it was there. Donkey Kong Land 2, Kirby's Pinball Land. I had this for the original Game Boy when I was younger, and I don't remember it being as difficult to control as it is, but I have it. It was a lot of fun. I also picked up Punch-Out, and I think that's it, yeah. So the last game that I have here is Punch-Out for the NES. This is not the Mike Tyson version, this is the Mr. Dream version. My battery's running low, so I'm going to wrap it up here anyway. But I downloaded this because Punch-Out was one of the only games that I had for the NES, and I love it. So being able to have it on the go is something that I really wanted to have as well. So that's it for my Wii U and my 3DS collection. So all that's left to do now is just to show off the games that I've downloaded on my Xbox 360, on the Wii, and I do have the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, so I may as well show that off as well. So we'll get that set up here in a moment. Alright, so I'm trying a slightly different setup for this. I just want to see how well it works for the 360. Let's just show the games that I have here. So some of these are games that I have installed as well, so I'll show the ones that I have installed versus the ones that are actually my downloaded titles. So the Call of Duty Black Ops 1 and 2 and Castle Crashers are actually not games that I have downloaded on my system, but for a while my brother-in-law was living with us, and he imported his his profile, and he downloaded these games on his. So I don't think I can't play them on mine. I think I only get essentially the demos, but he did download those, so that's why they're there. Castle Crashers was a lot of fun though, so I might actually at some point go and get the actual copy of that. Also have, so the games that I have downloaded is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and this game is just awesome, and I don't have to explain that. The bottom corner is showing that it's only the demo, which is weird. It does that sometimes, but when you load it up, it actually loads up the full game because I do have it properly downloaded. I played it through it a few times, and I actually finally was able to beat the game as Richter, which I was never able to do before, so I got good enough at the game to be able to beat it with Richter. Of course, I have Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeons & Dragons Chronicles of Mystara. I did a playthrough of Tower of Doom. One of these days I want to do a playthrough of, I think it's called Shadows over Mystara, which introduces the thief and the magic user. Human classes. Call of Duty again was downloaded by brother-in-law. It's not a game that I have available to me. Indie games, Cthulhu Saves the World. This game is hilarious. It's an old style RPG like the old Final Fantasy games, but you play Cthulhu trying to get your powers back, and you have to do heroic deeds basically to get your powers back. It does have random battles, but when you go through a dungeon or you enter an area, you can actually select the option to just keep just doing the battles all up front until you clear an area. And so that means that if you do all the battles up front, then you can essentially just walk through the area without the random encounters, which is really cool. But if you want more encounters, you can just go into the options and select to have a fight. So really cool, really funny game, great sense of humor. If you don't have this one, I highly, highly recommend it because it's just so much fun. We also have Dungeons & Dragons Daggerdale, which I started a playthrough of. It's not great, I'm not going to lie. I do want to finish that playthrough one of these days though, so that should be happening at some point. The original Doom, love this game, so downloaded that. Doritos Crash Course 2 was a free game, so why not? Dragon Age Origins, this is just that I have it installed on my system because the installed games tend to run faster, like the load times are better. And you don't seem to get as many glitches, but there are definitely still some glitches. Fable 3 was a game that I got for free because I had a month of Xbox Live Gold. And this was around the time they were starting their free games with Xbox Live Gold. So I got Fable 3 for free. I don't know why it never shows the artwork for it, but Gauntlet 7 Sorrows came out for the original Xbox, and it's a lot of fun. I didn't get very far into it, but it's just good old-fashioned, like, you know, dungeon crawl, hack and slash, Gauntlet action. I also have Magic the Gathering 2014 and 2015. I want to say it's called Duels of the Planeswalkers. And they're pretty fun. I've got some cool decks in both of those. It's not like the most in-depth, type of game because the decks are preset. Although in 2015, you can build your own decks from booster packs that you get, which is really cool. I'm going to do sort of a focus or a spotlight on this series when I get to my physical objects because I do have a few games in the series there. But this is the Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection. So this game is pretty awesome because it has Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, and it also has Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 if you like that sort of thing. I don't like that game at all. I think it kind of sucks. There's several fatalities that were programmed incorrectly, so like you can unlock Classic Sub-Zero, and if you do his fatality where he would do normally the spine rip, the screen just goes black. And you don't see anything, you just hear the sound effects. And that moment made me rage quit. Because I was playing it online with my friend who lives in Ontario. And, I think he was hosting, so I was able to use Classic Sub-Zero because he had him unlocked on his. And it's like I got to pull off this fatality, and pulling off the fatalities in Mortal Kombat 3 was really difficult because some of them had just awful inputs. But I finally was able to do it, and all he does is just put his hand on the guy's forehead, and then the screen goes black. And I hated it so much that I quit, and I only played it again to get the achievement where you beat all 3 games, to get the achievement for it. Now, in order to get the achievements, you have to have them set to the cabinet screen, so it mimics the old CRT screens, and you have to have the scan lines on. So you have to actually make it look like the old arcade games. If you don't, which sucks because I beat Mortal Kombat 3 originally without any of the filters on, and it didn't count, which was really stupid in my opinion, but there you go. Also have Pac-Man because, it's Pac-Man. Pac-Man's a classic, love the arcade game. Pinball FX is just a game demo that came with the hard drive. Then I have Resident Evil Code Veronica X and Resident Evil 4. They came as free downloads for getting the special edition of Resident Evil 6. And if this is probably common knowledge by now, but in case you're unaware, originally the PlayStation had the exclusive rights to the main story series of the Resident Evil games. So Resident Evil 1 and 2 appeared on the PlayStation. Now we have Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which takes place at the same time as Resident Evil 2. And it was always kind of a different game, and it felt more like an expansion than its own sort of separate thing. And the reason for that is it technically was. So when the Dreamcast came out, it had, better specs and better, graphic capabilities, and there was a lot more that you kind of do with it. So Konami, not Konami, Capcom, I don't know why I said Konami. So Capcom wanted to develop the Resident Evil 3 game for the Dreamcast, and Sony wouldn't let them because they had the rights to the numbered games. So they were originally developing Resident Evil 3 for the Dreamcast, and they were developing a spin-off title for the PlayStation. Rather than switch things around, what they ended up doing was just calling the spin-off game Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and the game that was originally meant to be Resident Evil 3 was called Resident Evil Code Veronica. So Code Veronica X is just the updated version. I think it's the same version that appeared on the GameCube, if I recall correctly, and the GameCube and like the PlayStation 2 and all those systems. So it's an updated version of the game. But to me, I still consider this to actually be Resident Evil 3 because there's just a lot more to it. You get, multiple characters that you get to play. It's got a much richer story than Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. So for me, this is Resident Evil 3. And then I've got, of course, Resident Evil 4 came with it as well. One of the greatest games of all time. Love it. Skyrim is a download, is an install, so I have the disc for it. I just installed it, so hopefully it'll run smoother. Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 I had downloaded because I had some extra funds left over after downloading some other things, so I got those two games. And I really want to like the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and I just don't. I tried so many times to play through it, and for me, it just really feels like the level designs are, almost unfair. In that, you're almost always going to end up running headlong into some sort of obstacle that, really should have been easier to avoid. But anyway, I have those. Super Contra, love that game. So this is the arcade version. It's got sort of enhanced graphics that you can use, or you can go back to the original. I also have the Walking Dead. This is the Telltale game, and it is unbelievable. It's the only game I actually have all the achievements for, and I'm gonna be completely and totally honest with you. It gets very emotional at the end, so it's just a really fantastic game all the way through. Hard to believe just how much you really kind of get invested in the characters. I also have The Walking Dead Season 2. I don't know if I have all the chapters downloaded, but I do have them all paid for. And I haven't gotten very far into this one, but this uses Clementine as a main character. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1989 arcade game, which is really awesome. You can play this 4-player. If you play local multiplayer, then you have like unlimited lives, I believe. But if you're playing through Xbox Live Arcade, then you only get a certain number of credits, and then that's it. I also downloaded the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Training Layer, which uses the Kinect. I don't have the Kinect hooked up right now, but it just uses the camera, and it puts like one of the turtle weapons in your hand, and you just kind of swing it around and try to hit stuff and eat pizzas. I also downloaded Torchlight because it just seemed like a really cool kind of Diablo-esque Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance style RPG, and the X-Men Arcade. So those are my Xbox 360 games, so what I'm going to do now is just switch over to my Nintendo Wii. Alright, so I got my Nintendo Wii set up. So this is again another one of my favorite consoles. It's sold incredibly, so I don't want to say that's underrated, but I think by more serious gamers, it's definitely an underrated console. There were some great games on here, but what really made this system fantastic, in my opinion, was the Virtual Console. So you could download games from a myriad of systems. I focused on Nintendo specifics because Nintendo was always my system growing up. But there was also, like, you can get things from the, I want to say, Sega Genesis, I know for sure. I think there may have even been some Sega Master System games available, and like the TurboGrafx 16. There were a lot of consoles that you could choose from. I think they closed the virtual shop down at this point. Like, I don't think you can actually download games anymore, or if you can, it's about to go out. So look that up, because if you have a Wii and you have some points on there and the system's still available, you may want to download some games. So just quickly show off the ones that I have here. I'm just going to start. I've got Punch-Out. And I'm not going to go through and just like show the screen for all of them, but Punch-Out. So I had this before I had the 3DS version. It's a lot of fun. I still love the game. I wanted to have it on the go wherever I went. The fact of the matter is that with these TVs and the wireless controllers, there is a little bit of input lag. that can make it very difficult to do things like fight Mr. Dream, who is a reskinned Mike Tyson. Super Castlevania 4 I have, because that's another classic game. The first game I ever downloaded for the Nintendo Wii, though, had to be Ogre Battle 64, Person of Lordly Caliber. And, ooh, just let me cycle through the game. Okay, I never actually realized that before. Okay, you can go through the different programs. Interesting. Alright, so anyway, Ogre Battle 64 is a game that I spent an entire summer on back when I was in high school. Borrowed it from a friend, and I would spend, sometimes 8 to 10 hours just playing this game. Absolutely loved it. It's an expensive game to find now for the physical copy. I wanted to get the physical copy, but I wasn't going to pay $80, $90 back in 1999 for this game. So, or even in the 2000s when I got this. Or I guess it was in 2000, so I wasn't going to pay that much money back then. And I wasn't going to pay, $80, $90 or $100 that they're asking for when I got my Wii. So instead, I downloaded it for 10 bucks. So yeah. So I'll go back to the Wii menu. So those are the ones that I have downloaded on the actual Wii memory. But the cool thing about the Wii is that it also had an SD slot. So you could load up an SD card and format it. And you could, when you downloaded games, you could download them to the SD card. So what I have here, just go through the collection, I've got Castlevania. This is the original Castlevania for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I also have Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, which is definitely an underrated game in my opinion. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. The transition from day to night is kind of a pain, but it's still an awesome game. Then there's Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. This is another really classic one, and I haven't got a chance to play too much of it. It is incredibly difficult, though. I do know that much from the little bit that I did play. I also have Star Fox 64, the game that introduced the world to the rumble features on home console controllers, which was an innovation that Nintendo made. It's one of the biggest reasons that I still love Nintendo over other video game companies today, because a lot of the innovations that we have in video games have come from Nintendo, and the other systems just kind of seem to jump on the bandwagon afterwards. Anyway, little rant aside, Star Fox 64 is great. Finally got a chance to beat it for the first time just a few weeks ago, so it was definitely a huge accomplishment, because there was one part on Venom where I just kept getting stuck, and anyway, I finally got through it, and it was awesome. I also have Super Metroid, because you have to have Super Metroid. Fantastic Super Nintendo game. And then of course there's the classic NES Mario Brothers trilogy, so Super Mario Brothers 1, Super Mario Brothers 2. This is the US Super Mario Brothers 2, not the Japanese version, which we know in North America as the Lost Levels. I actually like this version better because it's, different and it's fun. Super Mario Brothers 3, probably the greatest NES game of all time. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I love this game, had it as a kid. I wish I would have kept my NES instead I gave it to a younger cousin when I got my Super Nintendo and N64. Up next we have Super Mario World, another classic for the Super Nintendo. This is the pack-in title. One of my favorite games of all time. Just went through and beat it recently, actually. Then there's Super Mario RPG, which is Square Enix, and actually I think it was just Square at that point. I don't think it was Square Enix yet. So Square and Nintendo got together. They created an RPG that kind of combines Final Fantasy with Super Mario Brothers. Really awesome. It has this active input battle strategy, so if you press the attack buttons at the right time, you can actually deal extra damage, or you can press the B button, I think, at the right time to reduce damage that you take. Really great system. I'm surprised that other games at the time didn't really use that. And then Super Mario 64, the first game I had for my Nintendo 64. An amazing game, absolutely love it, and still one of my favorite games of all time. Then I picked up Paper Mario. This is for the N64 as well. You'll see that I have Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. This version and the Thousand Year Door are the only two that have what I consider to be the really great RPG battle system. I don't mind the turn-based combat. I think it's perfectly fine. And both those games have it. This one here, I haven't gotten too far into it yet, but it's got a great sense of humor and awesome gameplay. Then I have Super Mario Kart, another classic for the Super Nintendo. I remember it was Christmas Eve. We rented Super Mario Kart from our local video store. I got to keep it for an extra day because of Christmas. And I remember I couldn't sleep Christmas Eve, so I went downstairs into the basement and I played Super Mario Kart probably until about 1 or 2 in the morning. So great memory of that. Absolutely love this game. Still holds up really well. A lot of people say it doesn't play well these days. I still think it holds up great. And then of course there's Mario Kart 64. Which is probably a lot of people's favorite Mario Kart game ever. It is great. I really like it. I think there are better Mario Kart games out there, but it definitely deserves to be sort of in that conversation. And I got Super Smash Brothers, which I never got to own for the original N64. A lot of fun. I have the only other Smash game that I have is for the Wii U, so I've got the first one and the most recent one. And then Mario Party 2, downloaded this for my fiance. We played it for a little bit, and I started beating her, so she didn't want to play anymore. And that's the last time that game was ever touched. So also here I have The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, and we're just going to skip over that for a second, and Majora's Mask downloaded. So you will see when I do my physical copies that I have the actual, the GameCube disc that had those 3 games on there. Oh. Second there, I don't know why. There's the focus. So when I moved from the Annapolis Valley to the South Shore in Nova Scotia, I thought I lost my memory card for the GameCube. The copy of the Wii that I have does support the GameCube, but I thought I had lost it. And because I didn't have the memory card, I couldn't save any data. So it made the GameCube disc virtually worthless, which really, really sucked. So I went out and I downloaded those 3 games because I had other ways of playing Ocarina of Time if I wanted to. I had the 3DS version already. So I downloaded these games, and then I think it was like 2 days later I found the memory card. But at the same time, it's still fun to have these, you know, on the Wii, because sometimes I may not want to, you know, put the disc in or go through all that. So anyway, so that's that. So I have those 3, and I downloaded A Link to the Past because I had no other way to play it. I had it originally for my Super Nintendo, but when I sold my Super Nintendo, I sold all the games with it as well. So I re-downloaded this one so that I could play it. I have the Game Boy Advance version, which I did get to play once when I had my Game Boy player for my original GameCube. But I lent that to an ex when she was sick, and it mysteriously got stolen, which I think she just sold it and kept the money for herself. But anyway, those are those games. And then I have the Final Fantasy games for the Super Nintendo. So I never got to play these originally when I was younger. This is Final Fantasy II, which is my favorite Final Fantasy game. This was actually Final Fantasy IV in the overall series, but it was only the second one to come out in North America. And it has like the actual fantasy feel to it, which is why I like it. I also have Final Fantasy III, which was Final Fantasy VI. It is a good game, but it's more like technology and kind of almost steampunk. And that's not really my main interest, so I like it, but the other Final Fantasy game is better. However, a game that I like, I think maybe even potentially more than both of those, is Chrono Trigger. So this is probably one of the best RPGs ever made for the Super Nintendo, in my opinion. Fantastic game. Love the time travel thing. You know, it actually makes sense to have the technology along with the fantasy elements. It's a great game. I need to get back into this because I haven't beaten it yet. Super Punch-Out, because I love the original Punch-Out so much. Fantastic game, so I have this as well. Again, there's a little bit of an input lag from these wireless controllers into the system. And now with the Virtual Console, I should say that you can plug a GameCube controller into your system if it supports it. Like I said, the version of the Wii that I got, it was the Mario Kart bundle, the black Wii console. And it was the last version to have the GameCube support, but you can use the GameCube controllers, and it does work better. The only issue is for certain games, it makes it very difficult because of the way the buttons are laid out. Like, I can't use the GameCube controller to play Super Mario World because just the way that the buttons are laid out, it just makes it very unwieldy to sort of play it that way. But again, Super Punch-Out is awesome. And the last two games that I have here is the original Ninja Turtles for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This is the one that got, made fun of on Angry Video Game Nerd, and it deserves a lot of the flack that it gets, but it is still a fun game. It's not as bad as people really make it out to be. It is difficult in ways that it really doesn't need to be, and yeah, the enemies are really bad, except for a few like Rocksteady, Bebop, and the Shredder. Everything else, there's a giant mouser as well, I guess, but there's just a lot of things that were never part of the Ninja Turtle story. So like the flaming walking flame person that shoots little tiny flames, the butterfly things, and there's a lot of bad enemies in there, but it is still a fun game. And then Contra 3. So that wraps up my Super Nintendo, my Virtual Console games for the Nintendo Wii. Again, a really great system, really enjoy it. And the fact that it had these virtual consoles made it such a great system to have. And the only other thing I think is on here is like YouTube and Netflix, or yeah, it just goes back to Castlevania. So anyway, like I said, absolutely love the fact that they had these things available for download, and it made the system so great. Even if you didn't like the gimmicks of the motion controls, to go back and get these games, and the prices were a lot better than what I would pay for them here as physical copies. Back in the day, the NES games were $5. The Super Nintendo games were $8, and the N64 games were, I think, $10 or $11. But either way, you could spend 20 bucks and download like 4 NES games, or, well, I guess 3 because there's taxes. Or you can get a N64 game and a Super Nintendo game. It was just such a great value in my opinion. So that is, like I said, my Virtual Console for the Wii. So the only thing I have left to show off, as far as my downloaded titles or my electronic titles, is my Super Nintendo Classic. And for that, I'm actually going to show just the box on the table here, because for me to do it on the TV, the way I have the camera set up now, I'd be sitting in front of the camera with my back to it. So I don't think the audio would come over very well. So we'll have a quick look at the SNES Classic, and that'll wrap it up for this video.